So all I was targeting was the rough sleepers who's on the street. So I was going up to them, giving them a flyer and saying, come off the streets for a couple hours, be warm, come and get clothes. We're based in Southwick House. The day we opened up those doors, we didn't even have food. I just went Tesco's, bought tea bags, sugar, cups, biscuits. When I mean we had about 40, 50 people outside, I was like, oh my God. We was running for about 2 months. I was getting phone calls from corporates.
I was going to say, did they speak the same language?
This is the Property Development Book Club podcast. Please be advised that the views expressed are of the individuals and do not represent their employers and should not be taken as advice. Please do your own research and seek advice from an appointed professional.
Welcome to the Property Development Book Club podcast. My name is Nyemu Nembe. I work at Inner Circle as a consultant, and I am joined here today by an amazing panel who have worked with communities across the UK and, dare I say, even as far as the US and Africa. And we're here today to talk about how Regeneration can support local inclusive ecosystems. I'd like to introduce you to our panel here. We have Solomon. Could you just introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Solomon Smith. I'm the founder of a homeless charity called Brixton Kitchen.
Steph?
Hello, my name's Stephanie Edwards. I'm an architect and urban designer and a co-founder of Urban Symbiotics. We focus on user-focused design, but really focusing on engagement and co-design within the built environment.
Hi, my name's Faith Lochkin, founder and CEO of We Rise In. We are a membership community for Black professionals, entrepreneurs and creatives.
Great, let's get stuck in. So my first question goes to Solomon. Could you tell us a little bit about your story as founder of the Brixton Soup Kitchen and the organisation and the background and how you came to be using your current space?
Okay. How far can I go back?
Back to the beginning, right? Go way back.
Back into time.
Back into time. So for me, I've got a twin brother, a little brother, a little sister, and we grew up on a council estate in Brixton. And for us, we was the only family on our estate that had mummy and daddy at home. So we took that for granted. We was like, oh, everybody's got mummy and daddy at home. And it's not until we got into about maybe 8, 9, you're going shopping with mummy, I don't want to show my age, but, it was going quick save, and, it was just the same routine, like weekends, going shopping with mummy. Mummy's making you hold pure heavy bags, when your hands are screaming for help. And literally when I'm going to my friend's house, they weren't living how I was living. So in my house, I had biscuit cupboard, crisp cupboard, mum and daddy's cooking food. But then when I'm going to my friend's house, no one's there. I'm going into their cupboards, I'm expecting them to have a biscuit cupboard and crisp cupboard. There was nothing there. And that is when I was literally like, oh, not everyone is as lucky as I am. It's basic, living in a Caribbean household. You have to wipe down the skirting boards, hoover to get a little pocket money. And I was very good. To this day, I'm very good at kind of saving money. I saved probably about £9 back then. That was like £1,000. Yeah, and I took my friend to QuickSave because I knew how to do it when obviously I was going with my parents. So literally I was like, come, we're gonna go and buy bread and beef burgers and all of these things, just so you've got house shopping. And I was literally about 9 years old. I always kind of had that in me to always give. I didn't know why. My parents work in social work. My dad used to work in like care homes. So I kind of saw their work ethic on kind of like always giving back. For me, I just never understood why I've always just wanted to help. I had friends at my house and I'm like, it's home time, we've got school in the morning. And they was like, I don't know what life is like having a man in the house. And that's when I was like, wow. I thought this was normal. I took it for granted. Yeah. And they was like, I have never been in a house and a man is actually in the house. So a lot of things hit me quite early. I started giving homeless people food. My parents, again, like I said, they Caribbeans. On a Sunday, they're cooking rice and peas and curry goat, and they're cooking for a christening. But there's only 4 or 5 of us in the house. Yeah. So what I used to do, I used to contain food when I was on my way to school, and I used to give to the homeless people in Brixton. I've done that for about a year, and then I kind of stopped and kind of forgot about it. My school life was quite hard. Me and my twin brother was diagnosed with learning difficulties. So to this day, we find it hard to read and write and, read emails and things like that. I went to a youth club, what was on my estate, and I saw one of the youth workers organising a trip. And I was like, let me see if I can do that. Went home with yellow pages, Salt Alton Towers, and I was just like, hey, my name is Solomon Smith, and I'm from a community centre in Morelands Estate. We had no community centre. I was just in my mum's house, and I was able to get 50 tickets for Alton Towers. And then I was like, how am I going to get us there? I'm on yellow pages looking for coach.
Yellow pages.
Yeah, there was no Google these days, yeah. So I'm looking for coach, and I'm thinking coach is spelled with a K. So I'm there, I can't find coach. So I went out Brixton, and then that's when a lot of coaches used to be hired back then. And I kind of wrote down the number. That's when I realized it was spelled with a C. And then I called up the number, what I've kind of written down. And then I was like, hey, I'm Solomon, I'm the youth worker, and I've been donated 50 tickets. But is there any way you can donate us a coach with a driver? And I organised it, we actually got to Alton Towers. Remember, I was like in year 9. When the woman said, oh, I need to speak to the organizer, I was like, I'm the organizer. She was looking at me like, how? Like, you're a little boy. When I saw all the families smiling and was just like, I can't believe I'm in Alton Towers, that's when I was like, I was able to, even though I can't read and write, I was still able to create this. I was able to create people to be happy. I was organized. I was able to organize. I was able to get people from Brixton going to Alton Towers. And that is when it hit me that I didn't need to be, smart. I didn't need to know how to read and write and read a book. It was just finding another way of kind of like dealing with things. Still left school with no GCSEs. School kind of failed me on that part.
But you still got a lot of heart and a lot of passion for what you do.
Yeah, I was still doing community events on my estate. I was getting funding to kind of like put on, like getting jerk pans and sound systems on my estate. I'd done that till I was about 18, 19, and then I started working for the council. So I started working, it was called the Youth Council. So with the Youth Council, we started to do a lot of stuff like peer inspection, where we go into different youth clubs, see how the money's spent, how the kids kind of want it to be better, etc. Teenage pregnancies, because at the time Lambeth had the highest rate of teenage pregnancies. So learning about, supplying young people with condoms, etc. And I was still doing the stuff on the side on my estate, and then at the same time still working for the council. I'd done that till I was about 21, and that's when my managers at the time was like, you can go to university with no qualifications. I never knew that. I just thought, I might as well just find my way, because I didn't go college. I didn't experience enough of those. And then I was like, from all of the stuff that I've done previously on my estate and also working for the council, I was able to build up a portfolio, what got me into Goldsmith. So I'd done applied social science and youth and community.
Wow, I've known you for a while and you've never told me that.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I went to Goldsmith, done a 3-year course, and literally the day I started was the day I was back at school. I was like, I do not understand what they're talking about. It is going over my head. When they was writing, I was just like, ugh. And then I literally walked out of uni and I was like, I'm going to leave today. Wow. Literally. And then I saw a thing called dyslexic awareness. Then I went into there. I made they gave me a session. I met with a psychologist. I met with, so many, practitioners, and they was like giving me little things to play with and try to say, make this out of these, read this. And they realized that me doing things with my hands was way much better than doing academical stuff. So there was like, your level of dyslexia is so high, you won't be able to make this course. However, from what we've studied, we can give you all of these equipments. What would help you? So they gave me like a laptop, Dragon, that reads things for me. I was able to talk. So, like Siri, where you can talk in your phone. Yeah. I had that from a long time. Yeah, I had that long time. And
Take your notes.
basically, yeah. So all I needed to do was to talk in there. They gave me a dictaphone, what only picked up the lecture. So even if the room was loud, it would only pick up the lecture. Then I can plug it into my computer, and then it would basically read it back to me. I can highlight it, copy it, pull it into my essays, things like that. So that is literally what helped me. But I only got that support from the starting of uni to the ending. So once uni finished...
I was going to say, I don't think you get a lot of that support even in workplaces for people with dyslexia as well.
No.
But moving on, so let's fast forward a little bit to you doing the work. I mean, you've been doing a lot of work with the homeless, supporting them from a very young age. And then you must have got to a place where you now wanted to have a wider or a bigger impact. Tell us a little bit about from that point and how you got the space in Brixton.
The day I handed in my dissertation is the day I said I don't want to do youth work no more. I want to set up my own soup kitchen. Because I was working for the council as a youth worker, I didn't like a lot of their practices. So if a young person wanted to go on a ski trip and he was literally in the same area, but the areas across the road, that could be Croydon. I was that youth worker that would be like, you don't live in Croydon, you live in Lambeth, just so you can access the service. And I was like, I shouldn't have to do that for you to access a service. So I said, if I ever was to open up my own organisation, I'm taking all boroughs out, all postcodes out. I know that we're all going through the same problems. So because of the background of me working on my estate, working in Brixton, a lot of people knew me for community work. So when I was like, I've got no policies, no procedures, I've just know the work I want to do. I said, I want to start up a soup kitchen. Soup kitchen means hot meals. So it's an American term. So I just looked at Brixton Soup Kitchen. It wasn't taken. I stole a logo. I put Brixton Soup Kitchen on there. Because I only wanted to work with the homeless until I got my results back from uni. So I just wanted to say, all right, I've got 7 months. Let me just do this in the meantime.
Fill your time, yeah.
Yeah. BBM, a lot of people don't know, BBM was booming these times. So this was BlackBerry.
Okay.
So I had BlackBerry and I had a lot of contacts on there. So I was just like, oh, guys, I need jackets, jumpers, hats, gloves, scarves. Bring it down to Brixton. And I was getting bags loads. Remember, I didn't know about the background work of running a charity. I just knew about running the charity. So I just used to go into a couple of centres. I was like, are you running during the day? If you're not running during the day, can I just use the day so I can get homeless people to come in, get hot tea, go through the clothes, and then they leave. And then I was getting a lot of no's. I was like, no. I went to I don't want to say the centres. I went to so many centres that told me no, but then I went back onto my estate. It was Southwick House, and it was run by the TRA. And it was like, cool, Stack, I've seen the work you've been doing for years. Cool. Plus, it's not being used during the day. The room was probably the size of in here. I had a kitchen. So when the woman was saying, when do you want to start? I said, let's make it simple. I want to start it on the 1st of January, 2013. That gives me enough time. So it had like about 3 weeks. Gives me enough time to make a flyer, go around to all the homeless people and say to them, start coming here. Oh my God. The day we opened up those doors, is only me and my baby mother at the time. When we opened up the doors, we didn't even have food. I just went Tesco's, bought tea bags, sugar, cups, biscuits. When I mean we had about 40, 50 people outside, I was like, oh my God.
Wow. Could you give us a time frame, like roughly when that was?
That
just
was,
in comparison, just to what we're going through now in terms of the cost of living crisis,
so
etc.
2013, it was more rough sleeping homeless people.
Right.
So all I was targeting was the rough sleepers who's on the street. So I was going up to them, giving them a flyer and saying, come off the streets for a couple hours, be warm, come and get clothes. We're based in Southwick House. The day we opened, it was packed. And we was running for about 2 months. I was getting phone calls from corporates. Now again, I've never learned to speak to corporates before. I've never learned how to have the jargon. I was just thrown in the deep end.
I was going to say, did they speak the same language?
They was just like, hello, I'm hearing the work that you're doing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm like, thank you. We're from Greg's Foundation. All I heard was Greg's. They was like, yeah, we heard that, that you're running a soup kitchen and that that we can probably provide you with some donuts. Come and sign this. I can't read or write. I'm just signing it because I want the donations that you're giving me. And then after that, Nando's called me from Tennessee. I'm getting a phone call and I'm like, this looks
Tennessee,
like
USA.
USA.
Right. So, I mean, fast forward to now, that's something that you still get.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you actually got your space, your building in Brixton and the situation that you're in now? I mean, you've covered, oh my gosh, I won't ask you how old you are because like it seems like you've done so much in a really short space of time. So just tell us a little bit about, you've told us about that journey, getting to this point. You've now got your regular, I guess, homeless people who now know where you are, know that they can come and get a meal from you, or now they can get a meal. It probably started off as snacks, like you say, just groceries. Where are you at now in this journey?
So when we was in Southwick House, from 2-3 months, we knew this place, we've outgrown this place already. So we waited for about 7 months, and we was like, and Derek Anderson was the chief exec at the time. And with Derek Anderson, he was very involved in community work. So you would see him at events, even though he was the CEO, it's hard to even get a meeting with the CEO.
So he's the CEO of a council?
He was the CEO of Lambeth Council. So I was like, I need to just reach him. I'd see him just walking. He literally used to just walk in Brixton. And I see him going to McDonald's. I said, Derek, I need to have a meeting with you now. Like, basically, I run a soup kitchen. The center where I am now is too small. So he was like, next week. I had a meeting with him the next week. And then he was like, there's 2 centers that are basically looking to close.
Wow, so that was pretty quick. I mean, if you saying you saw him, he engaged with you, and he was ready to meet you and offer you space.
Instantly.
Wow.
Instantly. So we didn't know nothing about leases, and because we was just getting thrown buildings. So he was like, there's 2 buildings, which one do you want? And we're thinking, obviously that one, because it's just across the road from where we are now.
And at this point, you knew nothing about leases, how to manage buildings.
Peppercorn, none of that.
What is peppercorn rent? None of that.
Nothing.
Okay. And you accepted one of the buildings.
Gave the keys, so we had more freedom. So we had the keys to go in and out. It was a better place for people to drop off donations. Amazing. And when we actually got the keys, it was actually run by the Brixton Domino Club. So they're kind of looking at us like, who's these local youths coming in there? But you're coming in there with Lambeth. What could you do? So we was like, we've got a whole year of people supporting us. But again, anyone could come with that talk. So we was just like, so they said, we've got a kitchen upstairs. The kitchen is run down. What could you do? We got ITV. We was on Surprise. ITV refurbished the whole kitchen. That was like amazing. We've got a back garden back there. The garden looked like a forest. What could you do? We got Citibank. Citibank come down with 200 staff and literally were so moved. They literally was like, I'm going to be putting in my own. So we had people who was working for Citibank saying, I'm going to get a crane. I'm going to get a skip. Forget the budget from Citibank. This is what I want to do. And they refurbished the whole back garden.
Wow. Okay. So
we put in a lot of investment and basically showing and proving what we can do.
And again, you've got a lot of wider corporate kind of support as well. I think going to that has been like the majority of your journey, like really getting that support from wider investors, from your local community. And I know that now you're in a building where you've had to think differently about lease arrangements. And I want you to talk just tell us where you are now in that, so that we can pass over and kind of share this conversation with, the rest of the panel around what that's meant for you, and how they've had similar situations working with other organizations.
So for us to basically even accept this building from the previous CEO at the time, he was like, the whole reason why we want you in this building is because we want you to basically be that brand. So when we're looking to do a refurbishment, the refurbishment is mainly done because of the work that you guys has done, the news coverage, everything that you guys is now bringing to the building. So we was like, cool. But then at the same time, for us at the Soup Kitchen, we also know the heritage of the building, what is the Domino Club. So we didn't want to be those guys to say, yeah, we're taking over. Yes, we're stronger than you. No, we was like, this building, I used to go to that there as a Saturday school because of my learning difficulties. So I wanted to keep the heritage alive, where we're now working with the Domino Club to say, look, this is what we need to do. You guys need to become an entity. You guys need to become a stronger body, etc. So using everything that we've learned, because remember, we've only been running the Soup Kitchen for a year now. So everything that we've learned for the year is what we're saying to you in 5 minutes. Look, this is what you need to do. Become a CIC, have a registered company, do more community work, etc. So even though we was doing what Lambeth was telling us to do, we was doing a bit extra. So when they was talking about kind of leases and stuff, we only learned about the lease when we realized that there was no lease.
Right.
And we was like, what?
And that is when the council came in, right? And this is where the council spoke to both organizations, yourselves.
No, they just wanted to speak to Soup Kitchen, but we're saying to them, no.
All right.
So we was the ones that was, and I think a lot of people get it confused because when they put us in there, all they wanted to deal with was the Soup Kitchen. And we're saying to them, no, you have to deal with us and the Domino Club. So that's why when we was having meetings before, before you guys came, we had 2 of you. So they will come in. So this begun from 2014, where they will come. We would have. I remember we had architects come. So it was the same blueprint, where they will come, be there for about 3 months, and then the architects will show us the building, and we're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And then we heard nothing, and then you guys will come again, 3 months, new architects will come. Oh my God, that's amazing.
So, Steph and Faye, both of you having both had experience of working with different organisations where there are leases involved, where there are communities involved, they're in buildings, they are trying to maintain a sustainable organisation, but not really having the understanding of how these organisations should really run in order to have the governance, the structures to pay rent, maintain the building, understand how they can grow. Could you just add a little bit more to this conversation? I'll just start with you, Faith, and your background in surveying.
Sure. So for those that don't know, I have a background in commercial real estate and worked in the sector for about just over a decade before I set up my business. From a lease perspective, so for people that might not know what a lease is, it's essentially an agreement that a tenant would have, a commercial tenant would have with a commercial landlord. Often what tends to happen, particularly if there's someone starting up a community focused or a community interest group or organisation, usually what that person is really good at, as Solomon has alluded to, is bringing the community together and galvanising people in efforts to support the community. Often what they might not know is the intricacies behind lease structure. So it's essentially a legal document. And so for anyone who owns a CIC or is doing something community related, I'd always, first of all, advise taking advice. So getting someone with legal expertise to look over whatever lease that you're agreeing with the landlord. At the start of, before you go into detailed lease negotiations, there's usually a sheet of paper that we call heads of terms. So it's usually irons out what either party wants to get out of this particular lease negotiation. Sometimes if you are a charity, you might be exempt from certain things. So the landlord might choose not to charge you a rent. So they will refer to it as a peppercorn rent, i.e. you're paying £0 on rent. But there might be a clause within that lease that suggests that after a certain amount of time of getting this place for free, then a rent might start kicking in. But I guess when your main ethos or the reason for you existing is to support the communities that you're working with, sometimes you might just kind of rush into that because you want the outcome of it, which is that, let's say, for example, soup kitchen. You want the soup kitchen, you want to get off the ground, you want to start helping and supporting. That there's other things that might get overlooked. So I think taking time and being patient, particularly when it comes to understanding contracts, which tend to tie you in for a long term. You know, the average contract length or lease length is 5 years, let's say, at this moment in time. So, you know, I'm in the process of agreeing a lease for the members club that we'll be setting up for our community in the City of London. And this is something where I've had to take advice as well, you know, because as much as I am aware of certain things, it's always good to have that legal expertise that can be like, well, actually, you might want to renegotiate this particular clause. Or if you know in 5 years' time you're going to be so big that you're not going to need the space anymore, you want to include a break clause, an option that gives you the chance to break away from that lease and not be tied in for a very long time. So I'm conscious I've gone into the real kind of nitty-gritty details, but those are some things that if you're a charity or if you're a community organisation and you're taking space anywhere, these are some of the things that you have to think about.
No, I think it's important that you kind of go into the kind of the nitty-gritty almost and the detail of these things, because I mean, you're someone with a background in commercial surveying, and in my mind, you know, I would have thought that you would know pretty much most of the things around, you know, looking at an agreement, understanding some of the legal terms, etc. But even for yourself, you've had to go and, you know, get someone with those expertise, which and an organizer, you know, someone like Solomon, you know, he's saying he's dyslexic, and as well as that, I'm not sure whether that's something that you went and got, you know, advice from legal advisors or a commercial surveyor when you were going through this. But also just, again, I'd like to come to Steph and some of the work that you've done, particularly even around this building that we're in right now, and just understanding, what it means to communities, maintaining or retaining cultural capital. These communities and organizations are so important, not only for the local communities that they're in, but even just, retaining that cultural capital. That's the reason why people want to come to these places, Brixton, Barking, because they are now these kind of buzz places. So just wanted to kind of hear from you, Steph, about some of the work that you've done.
Yeah, and I think it's just really important, I think, just to hear from like both yourself and Faith, and we've worked together at the Brixton Soup Kitchen, and I guess from us at Urban Symbiotics, we really focus on how we can really embed that community need, community aspiration, but also that power, because as you say, you may not be able to read or write as well, but you have power. And so how can you do that amongst, 10 times how many Solomons are out there? And so we're really interested in starting to create that framework to allow that to flourish, to identify where people are, what they need, and how to embed that into a framework that can then flourish. So then it includes space, it includes funding, but it also includes a sustainable framework to continue. What if you want to pass it on to someone else? How can someone else follow in that space? And so to look at something more tangible, like we are in, the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham, and we are working in Dagenham to actually create a community vision. So we're looking at an urban regeneration framework and community vision for Dagenham Heathway. And that's a place that's undergoing, it has already had a lot of change. It has had a lot of change in terms of its community, its people. And now we're looking at, what social infrastructure is needed. So it's mapping what's working really well, what's missing, who are the communities, who are members of those communities, how do they differ, how may they want to come together, how may they want to have their own separate spaces. And so through co-creation, really listening to what people need, also finding ways, like I just have to talk about your soup kitchen spaces and you offering food, because it isn't a soup kitchen as you imagine. It is, I imagine it's at that Sunday space in your family's home, like you bring people together in this space of giving. So actually it's leveling that playing field. And so, when we find out what people need, we'll go and do street conversations, we'll have pop-up, we'll give to get back. We will then, use an analysis to find out what are your priorities. Is it about safety? Is it about belonging? Is it about identity? Then how can you translate that into, okay, this is the space that you have. These areas are vacant. These areas can be regenerated, and this is what we need to plug funding into, whether it's community gardens, whether it is, better affordable housing in this area, whether it's community centres in different ways. There are people that are already offering community space, whether it's charity shops to offer, spaces for people to find clothes for employment, or people operating to help with legal advice that you need to uncover in your regeneration framework. We look at it as a place that is focused on space, but also on service, on people, and also funding. So that just gives us a bit of a flavour as to how I think we embed all of this.
Would you say, are your clients the local authority that's engaging with you to ensure that they're really unlocking their regeneration from a community ground up perspective?
It's exactly that, and right at the beginning, so it can be mentioned in like the local plan, which is the high, the outline. Then it is mentioned in maybe a neighbourhood plan that you can work together with communities. But if you can work with the local authorities in the first instance to embed that, then you're ensuring that you're almost tying all the dots together and bringing the networks there too.
And it's a more robust way of supporting local communities when it comes from policy. If it's embedded in policy and kind of that framework, which is usually evidence-based, so that evidence base informs the framework. So a lot of the work that Solomon is doing already, a lot of the things that you've mentioned in terms of those spaces, he works with families back to school. Sorry, what do you call it? The back to school drive. He has a garden space in the back garden. You give legal advice to people who need housing. You are feeding the homeless. Like, it already, you know, covers so many of those kind of areas that you mentioned. And maybe, you know, I guess it really is something about local authorities maybe learning from what you're doing with Barking and Dagenham and putting that in place in other places like Lambeth.
I'd also say it's quite important for, if we're talking about, this is obviously the Development Book Club podcast, developers as well, large commercial developers that are coming into spaces like Brixton, like Peckham, that have this kind of rich cultural heritage, not only engaging with the likes of your business, where you're supporting the developers in understanding how best to preserve that culture and community. I also think they have a responsibility, if they are working directly with charities and stuff, to give them the support that the charity needs to really understand what relationship they're getting into with the developer.
Yes.
You know, so because often, you know, there's this kind of assumption that the other party will have, you know, legal advice or have all this, but often you're not. You're dealing with like really small organisations that just want to do good. So if you're a commercial landlord, you need to really think about how you're engaging and how you're actually supporting that community and coming to the table.
And also, just to jump in, just to bring all of these different entities together. So, you know, for example, we might produce a booklet or a report for a local authority, but then we'll also do a handbook for community members so that they can say, oh, okay, actually, I don't have to always go with this funder. I have a wealth of funding potential. You know, you can do match funding, but then also bringing in those levels of support, because maybe it's not in the interest of the person giving you the funding to give you that advice. Maybe you need to be able to tap in and to know who you can go to and how you can link in with other entities and learn from other people. We talk about capacity building, but what about capacity exchange amongst people in the area?
And I think also, I guess to Solomon's point, is knowing your power, knowing the leverage that you have, because, you know, as I'm pretending to be a commercial developer here, for a lot of them, there is now a requirement to create affordable workspace or to work with diverse suppliers. So often you are their ticket item. You know, they see you as okay, if I get Brixton Soup Kitchen in my building, I've ticked the affordable workspace box, and I've ticked, you know, we can evidence that we are a diverse, we're hiring diversity or using diverse suppliers. So there's power in that. So know that, you know, you are actually helping and benefiting the landlord as much as the landlord is giving you that space as well.
Most definitely. So really it's about, I mean, you already have a good relationship with the Regeneration team, I think, in Lambeth. And maybe it's about kind of engaging with them further around, you know, we know that you get planning applications in by large developers who, need to provide, you know, this affordable workspace. And we could, you know, as Faith is saying, be that ticket box.
Yeah, I just think it just needs to be like, you got to remember, when I'm meeting with Lambeth, most of the stuff's going over my head. Only thing I want to hear is, when are you coming to fix the building and when are we going back in? For a lot of community groups, all they know is the work on their aims and objectives. When it comes into buildings, that is our next palaver. We're just like, this is madness. I don't know what you're talking about, leases and policies. I just know to be in a building. Remember, when we're like, usually like when we're working for someone, we're going into their building. When we've never had to learn about the backstory of how the person got the building. But then now being a community leader or a CEO, comes the next stress is when they're now talking about the policies and the procedures and the leases. I only learned more about the lease when we met with you guys. And they was talking about, the lease was done in 2000 and what? And I was like, huh? So what was it? So we was basically in a building as ghosts. We was basically in a building as ghosts, but still providing a service. Downstairs not knowing what's going on, upstairs don't know what's going on. It's only when the guys decided to say, oh my God, every time it's raining, we've got to put a pot here, we've got to put a pot here, we've got to put a pot here. Something needs to give. And what should have happened, what I said to the Domino Club, you guys were here for 25 years. You should have had somebody in your organization saying, okay, we might need to look for outside funding. We might need to, maybe to rent spaces. We might need to do this. But I think because it got so run down, it was just so hard for us to even get outside people to kind of just come and use the space and to charge. Because they're like coming in there and they're just like, yeah, we'll give you a call. We know what that means. Yeah. But we ain't going to see you again.
I mean, I think to conclude, like the Brixton Soup Kitchen, Domino's Club, the building that you're in has been fully refurbished. Obviously, you still have some challenges around your lease arrangement. I think maybe if you, talking to our audience, what is it that, where you are at right now, what is it that you really want in terms or need in terms of moving on? Obviously, the big thing will be funding. But is there anything else?
I would say I get a lot of phone calls, and I'm talking a lot of emails on people saying how to secure a building. And I don't know what to say to people because there is a lot of empty buildings, but I don't know how to secure that. I think there needs to be something put in place where they say, are you a community group? Are you a CIC? Are you at this? Do you need a space? And then it gives us that time to now learn probably about the lease. I did not know, like I said, I did not know what a lease was until I met with you guys.
So calling out to any commercial surveyors.
All commercial surveyors, any people who's got any buildings just sitting there, don't just give a community group because you want the building to look good. Give them the nitty gritty of basically running a building. Like lights have to be paid for, things have, like you have to, I think you have to, the honesty.
So organizations and developers who are giving you these buildings should really help you understand what's required in order to run these buildings. Yeah. Steph?
I think also just hearing you talk, I remember there was a really, I think the Regeneration team, I think it's within Croydon Council, set up a really good pack with Crystal Palace community groups, and it almost had everything filled out. It's almost like if you need to apply for an event, for example, everything is filled out. You just sign here, add these details, put that forward. And, there's all of the, we apply for funding in different places, and we're always really clear that it always becomes quite apparent that there are a lot of barriers. And if you're not used to filling out applications for funding, it's not even that, it's not easy to do. And so how can we make these easier, provide handbooks, find toolboxes, us as built environment like specialists, actually help to be translators. We're not just about, if we are here for community, how can we do it in the best way with the most impact? And I think actually we need to be having more of these sessions, so you understand what are your pain points, so that we can maybe embed that at the high, exactly, when we're talking to local authorities, to developers, but it is about those relationships and making sure it's all tied into what is needed.
Just from doing the work that I've been doing, I was lucky enough to work with an organisation called Storm. They're based in Battersea, so she works with mainly domestic violence. And I was kind of saying to her at the time, yeah, oh my God, our buildings is proper mash up. We've got to use the extension from the main room to go into the kitchen, etc. And she was like, this building I am in right now, I've had for 15 years, and I don't pay nothing. I said, what? And that's when she teamed him up with an organisation called A-Stop. So she was like, I'm going to reach out to A-Stop and just look out for a call. A-Stop gave me a call, And there was like, I heard you need a building. We've got buildings right now in Southside. I said, huh? The Byron Burger, they're not there. They've gone during COVID. They're not coming back. Do you want Byron Burger? I was like, huh? Okay.
That's on Southside.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We've had Byron Burger since COVID. So we've got 3 floors. I'm talking the whole restaurant, but the whole restaurant's out. So we've just got the space. We've had that since COVID. And with this organization, again, they need to be known, because I've hooked up other organizations and they've been able just to get buildings. Now what they do, they are the bridge to community groups, to empty spaces. So if this space where we are now is just left derelict, and the planners are saying, we're not going to do nothing until maybe 2026. What they will do is say, we can give it to organizations.
Until 2026.
Into 2026.
Right. I guess we do need a part 2 on this.
Yeah.
We definitely do. Sorry, and going over to Faith so that we can conclude.
Just call to action in general.
Yes.
I think this conversation has been really interesting because it seems to me that there is a missing piece of work that needs to be done from the consultant side of things, in terms of maybe almost like we'd call it like an O&M, like an operational manual to support these smaller community organisations to understand like basic things. If you're going to take up space, these are some of the terms that you're going to come across. You know, the term lease, the term break clause, the term peppercorn rent. You know, here are some organisations that you can contact who maybe give pro bono legal services, so that you can understand your legal entity. I think if I had to kind of give a call to action to anyone from this, it would be to the commercial developers or to the local authorities, to really just be cognizant of the fact that when you are working with some of these community groups, they're maybe not as advanced from the technical side of things as they might need to be for agreeing some of these negotiations. So giving them, I guess, that flexibility and being patient with them so that they can actually understand what they're getting themselves into.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been a really interesting conversation, and no doubt we're going to have a part 2 of this one. Thanks.
Building dreams we can. In the privacy book club, racing up the road.